Right, it is time for reading, wrap-up, reflection, and stats. Hey everyone, it is Shannon, and I'm super excited to be here today and to share with you this video. This is going to be my April reflection and stats video, and in this video I go through a whole bunch of different things. I know these tend to be longer videos, so I like to give you a breakdown of how they're going to go, and I will leave jump links down below and a table of contents for these 5 different sections. So we will start things off with stats, then look at series versus standalone reading, then projects and challenges, and then I reflect back at the month as a whole and how I did on my TBR or whatever my particular challenge or theme of the month was. Can't wait for that. And then round things off with favorites of the month. So that's how things roll, and let's get this party started. So first off with stats. I read a total of 31 different titles this month, and the total page count per day, not per day, page count over the days was 4,750 pages. It's a really even number, and that made my daily average page count to be 158 pages a day. My best day, I read 494 pages. I'm sure a lot of that was manga. And my lowest page count day was 28 pages in one day, which was actually my highest of my lowest page counts a day. Take them where you can get them. In terms of a breakdown by type or length of work, I read 2 comics bind-ups, 3 graphic novels, 7 volumes of manga, and 2 kids' picture books. So that was 14 visual works overall. And I read 2 nonfiction works, 1 poem, 4 short stories, 1 novella, 6 kids novels, 1 YA novel, 1 adult romance novel, and 1 regular adult novel. And the average page length per title was also 158 pages. So it's kind of like I finished a thing a day, which I almost did. April has 30 days and I read 31. I was trying to, I think because I read less in February and March or something, I was trying to get it to like a title per day by the end of April for the year so far or something like that. I achieved that goal, but I think that's what it was for 1 work per day. I don't think I'm continuing that trend in May. Let's look at the breakdown by genre. I read 6 adventure titles, 5 horror titles, 4 urban fantasies. Yay! That's one of my favorite genres, and I haven't been reading as much, so I'm glad to see it at a 4. I read 3 science fiction titles, 3 thrillers, and 2 fantasy titles, 2 nonfiction titles, 1 poetry title, 1 historical romance, 1 contemporary fiction, 1 western, 1 humor, and 1 sport. Some of these categories are weird. In terms of the breakdown of how I actually read the work, I listened to 1 audiobook, which is on average for me, 5 works I read on my Kindle. I read 1 paperback, 1 hardcover, 2 trade paperbacks. I read 14 on my Fire tablet, and I have 4 on my extra tablet, which I don't have here. I actually inherited an additional tablet, and it's a bit larger, and it's really, really great for comics and graphic novels, so I'm very, very thankful. But that does mean I read 18 on various tablets, and I had to add another line on my stats spreadsheet for extra tablet. And then to throw another wrench in the works, this month I read 3 partial titles. So I read 3 works within collections that I want to count as individual works for various reasons. I very ambitiously thought I would read all of the works, at least in one of the collections, but I did not. So 3 of the titles are short stories, basically, but they're from larger works, and I had to add another line on my spreadsheet for that. Yeah. Anyway, it's all fine. Okay, in terms of ratings, I read, I had 1 6 out of 10, 3 6.5 out of 10, 6 7 out of 10s, 5 7.5 out of 10s, 2 7.75 out of 10s, 6 8 out of 10s, 5 8.5 out of 10s, that's actually pretty good, and 2 9 out of 10s. No 9.5s, no 10 out of 10s, but still, that's a fair amount in the 8, 8.5, and 9. And overall, my average was 7.66. It was almost the same as last month, which was 7.69. The shortest title that I read was To Be Taken with a Grain of Salt by Charles Dickens, which was 10 pages, and this is one of those titles within a text situation. So that was from this work, Great Ghost Stories, and I really thought I would read all 10 and finish this 100-page book, which I started right at the beginning of the month. That didn't happen. So I'm counting it as a separate work, and then when I finish this as a whole, I won't count it at all. That's how I do partials. The other one makes a little more sense because these are just individual stories from different authors, and I don't always do this with collections. I'm more likely to do it with what's that word? Like if I'm reading through an author's works. Okay, so that was the shortest. And then the longest I read was 438 pages long, and that was Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. And this has illustrations by Vector That Fox. Is it Vector That Fox or Vector the Fox? Now I want to know. Where does it say the illustrator? Goodness gracious. It's kind of in here. Vector That Fox, illustrated by Vector That Fox. And yeah, it was quite a feat to finish this, but I really enjoyed it. So that was the longest title that I read. The highest rated title I read was The Midwinter Witch by Molly Knox Ostertag. It is the third in the Witch Boy series, and it was rated 4.33 is the average rating on Goodreads. I really enjoyed this. This was actually definitely my favorite of the Witch Boy series, which I had a very sort of I wasn't sure about it. The first one, the second one won me over a little bit. This one, loved it. So I think there's going to be more, and I am looking forward to more if there is more. It's been an interesting series. My lowest rated title, sadly, was The Unparalleled Adventure of One Hans Pfaall by Edgar Allan Poe, which is the first in this collection. This one makes a little bit more sense that I'm counting each of the titles individually, because I'm trying to, on my sci-fi, fantasy, and weird, and on my Those Books exploration project challenges, is a collection of works by Edgar Allan Poe. So one of them is like the complete Edgar Allan Poe, and I can't remember what the other one's called. So I'm trying to figure out how much Poe do I have to read to feel like I can check those things. Now, I don't know, but I'm starting here, and I think this one has a fair amount of works in it, and I don't know if it has a table of contents. No. But it does have the poetry, which I've already read in a separate collection. So I'm trying to figure out, do I want to get to complete? That might be a bit of a challenge, but I'm starting here, and I just read the one. So anyway, it had a rating of 3.13 on Goodreads. It was the longest work in this text, and it was a little hard to get to, and I can understand if people didn't super gel with it. I think of it as more of an adventure story, and I like adventure stories, and it had to do with a hot air balloon, which it took me a little bit to figure out that that's what the description of the thing was. So it was a bit heavier. It's definitely heavier than the poetry that I've read of his. So, but I am going to continue reading Poe. The most popular title that I read in April was Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief by Riordan. This was a reread for me. This had 2.1 million ratings and is the most popular book that I have read of the year, by leaps and bounds. This one was a reread for me. I read it in 2010. I was hoping to read through the series. That I have not made enough progress, but oh well. I enjoyed it. It's a great book. My next most popular book was actually Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton with 831,103 ratings. Those are actually both rereads. So the most popular first read for me was Essentialism by Greg McKeown. Oh, I'm not sure. That E is throwing me off. This is a nonfiction work about the disciplined pursuit of less, and it has 67,289 ratings. So that is quite a dip, which I was a little surprised at because I feel like this is a very, very popular book, and 67,000 is not nothing to sneeze at, but I thought it would be more. So it also made me know this is like, something that's come out, I think, within the last 10 years, and like Jurassic Park was from the 90s, and Percy Jackson's been out for at least 10 years. So it's also interesting to see sometimes most popular also could mean that it's been around longer. And those have both been, the Percy Jackson and Jurassic Park have both been adapted to films. I wonder what Essentialism, the film, would look like. That would be interesting. The newest title that I read is Everything is Beautiful and I'm Not Afraid by, I'm not sure how to pronounce the author's name, Xiao? No, can't be why. I'm the same pronunciation of the. I'm not sure. This is was it a comics? It's a bit more of a comics bind up, and some of the comics were very, very short. It was really great. And is an immigrant story from China and also queer, and I really enjoyed it. It was very heartfelt. Definitely sometimes sad, reflective, expressive, and I thought it was a great work. I really enjoyed reading it. So this is from 2020. I read it for my A to Z graphic novel challenge for the letter E. And the oldest, we're going back with this one, was The Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. This is from 1798. And I read this because I was trying to read works from my Kindle, and this one I picked up for free at some point, and so one more read. I didn't feel like I got the whole story. I definitely didn't retain it. I'd love to maybe listen to this because it is poetry, and read it again or see an adaptation. I could feel the atmosphere and stuff, but I wasn't getting or retaining the story very well. And that can happen. That happens for me, for sure. Especially with older work, but I keep trying. Okay, next to look at series versus standalone reading. So of the 31 titles that I read in April, 22 were series works and 9 were standalone. So that's 71% series and 29% standalone. It's a bit higher, on the higher side for me. I think recently I've been more like 64 to 35, but it's not, it's still normalish. I started 5 new series. I read 13 works that continued series. I caught up on 1 series. Can't remember which one that was. I feel undecided about 2 series. I think those are both manga series that I tried. And I finished a series. Go me! I finished the Polar series by Victor Santos, and so I read 1 through 4, and then I also read the Zero prequel-ish thing, and it's very violent, and I think the second one was my favorite, but I enjoyed the last one as well. I was a little surprised at how much I enjoyed the last one. It's the visual style is really engaging. I like how it's a limited color palette of black, gray, and one color usually, and there's lots of great positive negative reversal, and the character is very surly. So, and some of the gender stuff is not great, but it's also not extremely horrible, which I was surprised at because from the film I thought the gender stuff was a little over the top. So yeah, so now I should probably rewatch the movie. Hey, I should do that. Okay, so that's how series versus standalone went, and now on to projects and challenges. So I have 50 different projects and challenges that I am working on throughout this year. For this month, or for April, 17 out of the 31 titles were for projects and challenges. So that's 54% of my reading was directed to projects and challenges. I think that's actually a bit low. But with those 17 titles, I did meet 29 different challenges. Hey, which is actually, even though it's a lot, it is the lowest month so far. I got 3.51% closer to my overall goal, so I'm getting there, but I usually get more like 4.5%. So it's a little less, yay, but still working on it. And then now to month-specific challenges. Wow. Okay, so my challenge to myself for April was to work on the physical books that I read. So I did read Jurassic Park, and it's big, so go me. I also did read The Red Pony by Steinbeck. See how long that is. It took me forever. It actually did take a fair amount of time. And I also finished Sweater Quest by Adrian Martini, which is a nonfiction work about knitting a sweater. No joke, that's literally what it's about. And I think I also finished the first Aru Shah book. So that's 4. I also partially read this, both the Poe collection and The Great Ghost. Now, I didn't think I would finish the Poe collection, but I thought I would finish this. So, yeah, so I read 4, and my goal was like 13 to 17. Epic fail. And I also feel like starting collections and noting them separately, and then I saw the number was like 7, but then when I looked closer, the number was actually 4. I was like, yeah. Like 4 versus 13. Yeah. So, and part of it is an experiment. I'm trying to read more of my physical books because I have this very lofty goal by the end of the year to have read half of my physical owned unread books. I think I feel very clear that that's not going to happen, and I don't know what to do with that information, but what can you do? So I think my main challenge was an epic fail. On the flip side of things, I did also participate in Maya's Women Write Classic SFF Readathon, which ran in early April, and the goal was to read works written by women before the year 2000. So for that, that's actually why I started Great Ghost Stories, because I read The Phantom Coach by Amelia B. Edwards, which is a short story from that collection. I also read Castle in the Air by Diane Wynne Jones, and I started but didn't finish The Female Man by Joanna Russ, which is actually really good, very engaging, but I'm still working on that one. So I got 2 out of 3, so that's better than I did on my physical TBR. One thing that I thought I would add, because sometimes I share this on Instagram and it's just funny, is the amount of Kindle books that I've read versus the ones that I haven't read. And so the amount of Kindle books I have that I've read is 230. So go Rime of the Ancient Mariner for getting one more done. I think I read at least 2 or 3 more. So I probably read the same on Kindle. I read a lot from the library and Hoopla and Script this month. So I think that's just the reality. There's nothing wrong with that. I love my library, but I totally failed. I was trying to limit my library reading, and it's just like that section, my handwriting just got in my reading journal, it just got smaller, and I was adding more columns. I'm like, I have the information, it is what it is. I think it's just true. I read a lot from the library. And the Hoopla, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Anyway, so for my Kindle owned unread, I have read 230 titles of my Kindle books, and I have 734 titles that are unread. So this is 24% read to 76% unread. Now, this is actually pretty even because I think I have a number that I took at near the end of March, and it is both the numbers are lower, but the percentage is about the same. So I am both continuing to read books on my Kindle and continuing to buy books on my Kindle or get books. A lot of the books I get on Kindle are free. One of the things I find as a nice stress reliever is just browsing the free Kindle books, because it's like shopping, but you don't have to pay anything, and I don't really hold too hard that I need to read the books that I get for free. Whether it's from Kindle or Google Play or downloading stuff from Project Gutenberg. For me, it's just it's honestly it's something I do for stress relief. If I'm having a bad day, I just there's no cost. There's no my Kindle will get full. My Kindle actually is starting to get full at this point. It's got about it's near 1,000 titles. I don't think all of those are downloaded, but anyway, I just thought it was fun. Let me know. Do you think that is a fun addition to the stats video? I added it to the bottom of my spreadsheet, and it's not too hard to look it up. So, and I do just keep them in folders, so it is a bit of a manual process. I just add it to the folder and then look through the unread folder and take off anything that I have read. So, because I do want to read the books on my Kindle, I think it makes sense not just to keep accumulating them, but they don't take up as much space as physical books. Anyway, now on to the favorites for the month. I think I just picked 5. Yeah, I just picked 5 this month. So my favorites, we're starting things off with The Midwinter Witch. You probably could sense that from when I talked about it before. So again, this is the third book in the Witch Boy series by Molly Knox Ostertag. It has what's the right word? What's the right terminology? Gender nonconforming situation in this series where it's like an urban fantasy situation where women are witches and men are shapeshifters, and our protagonist is a guy, but he wants to be a witch. So it's really interesting to see that journey. I did find the first book a little tough because there's lots of resistance. There's lots of facing the discrimination against wanting and feeling drawn to something different than what's expected and accepted. So I found that first one a bit tough. But this one, the third one in the series, I loved. And it's also set in the midwinter, and so I really enjoyed it. So so that is my first favorite. Then we have, let's just go with it. Also Essentialism by Greg McKeown, the disciplined art pursuit of less. So this is a nonfiction book. I put it for me as a nonfiction book about productivity because that's one of my subgenres of nonfiction that I am working through, and this is definitely one that has come up again and again. I listened to this, I think I started listening, I listened to it from the library. Normally I do audiobooks on Scribd, but this one wasn't available or it became unavailable. I can't remember. So I had to get it from the library. So I had to listen to it within the 21 days, and it was tough. I tend to finish one audiobook takes me 2 to 6 months to finish. So I was really, really keen on this one, and I got a lot from it. And it's a subject like productivity is a subject that I'm interested in. I didn't agree with everything, but I also think that that's sometimes good with nonfiction, because then it stretches and you have to think about why you don't agree with something, as opposed to if you agree with everything, then there's less learning and less stretching and stuff like that. So anyway, so that was one of my favorites for the month. Then also another big favorite of the month was Jurassic Park. I found this really, really fun to read. I know the film very well, and I enjoyed reading the book. I think I might have read it back in the day, around the time of the movie, but it has been so long. I'm not sure. But now I really want to watch the movie, and I would really love to read the second book. The movie, has become a franchise, so there's lots and lots. But there is one more book, The Lost World. And so I actually found the book to the film quite more similar than I expected, especially from what other people have mentioned. So I definitely want to watch it. It's on something. It's on Prime or Netflix or somewhere. And I probably own it. Oh, I probably own it, actually. Anyway, but one of the things that was so funny is I really did see a lot of the actors, especially Sam Neill's character, but mostly Jeff Goldblum. Talk about bringing a character to life. I literally could not see the character of Malcolm not as him. I could just see him saunter onto the screen, when I was reading this. It was wild. But I did feel like some of the other things, and Samuel L. Jackson, definitely could see him. So it was just really strange. so I didn't pick up on the differences, but it has been a while since I've seen the movie, but I feel like I know the movie quite well. I could hear the theme music, I could see the banner fall down. Like, it's just so, familiar. So anyway, so that was a lot of fun, and it reminded me that I really do like adventure stories. That one's more of a thriller because the stakes are really high, but I love adventure. So any adventure stories, especially, like, there's lots of, I think it's one of the reasons why I like a lot of middle grade, but anything that's adult, fiction that is adventure spirited, I'd love any recommendations, especially if there's good gender dynamics, as opposed to this one did have a bit of sexism. Just it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but even thinking in those terms lets you know how prevalent it can be. Okay, so last two favorites of the month were Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters, which is the second book in the Percy Jackson series. And guess what's first? Percy Jackson, the Lightning Thief. It was my favorite of the month. Although these two were pretty close, but all three of those were rereads. All three of them. So what's going on? I think I am harsher on my ratings these days than on stuff I reread. Mind you, Jurassic Park, if it's a reread, which I think it is, I read it before I had a spreadsheet, before I think spreadsheets were a thing, so at least in electronic format. I never had a ledger for my books. Actually, I probably did have a notebook with all the books I read before computers, but anyway, not before computers, but before, like, I used Excel. So that was my most favorite was that. And yeah, it's a great adventure. Again, adventure, and urban fantasy, mythology. It's all the things I love. I would like to continue that series, but I don't know when that's going to happen. The schedule I was trying to adhere to kind of fell apart. So I'm not sure. So anyway, and as I said, like, this was actually kind of fun to do because I couldn't really remember what I read in April. So I'm curious, do you find that once the new month hits, like, whatever you were working on in the previous month sort of just becomes a bit of a mystery? Because I remembered that I failed the physical reading challenge. But generally speaking, because I've been so in February, I've had a hard time remembering what April was even about. But overall, it looks like a pretty good reading month, although I do have a lot of collections to keep working on. Maybe they will come out of the jar. Who knows? This did. Female Man. That was one of my week 1 reads for my May reading challenge. And, but did I finish it? I think I might have accidentally said yes or no, so sorry if that was a spoiler. I'm sorry. It's hard to keep track of all of this, the video schedules. But anyway, so that is how my April went. Let me know how your April went and what are you enjoying now that it's May. And if you want to know the Kindle read versus unread stat, I think it'll both just continue to grow, so I don't know how interesting that'll be. But I guess potentially I could end up reading, like, finishing things. Potentially. I finish things. They're just not necessarily the format I think I'm going to finish. Anyway, all reading is good reading. All reading counts. That is a good thing. All right. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be back soon with another video. Take care.